Weddings are supposed to be about joy, family, and love. But on the day of my daughter's wedding, the sharpest cut didn't come from nerves or stress. It came from a single, careless remark. I had chosen a simple navy dress, elegant but modest, something I felt comfortable in. As I walked through the reception hall, my son-in-law glanced at me, then smirked. "Really? That's what you decided to wear? Looks a little cheap, don't you think?" Laughter bubbled from his friends. My cheeks burned. But what he didn't know was that the very hall we stood in, the $200,000 venue, belonged to me. The morning of the wedding had been full of nerves. My daughter, radiant in her gown, held my hands and whispered, "Thank you for everything, Mom." That moment alone made all the sacrifices worth it. When I slipped into my dress, I felt confident enough. I wasn't there to outshine anyone. I was there to support my daughter. The navy fabric flowed gently, the pearl necklace at my throat a gift from my late husband. To me, it wasn't cheap. It was meaningful. But when I arrived at the venue, my son-in-law's eyes swept over me with thinly veiled disdain. He leaned toward one of his groomsmen and muttered just loud enough for me to hear, "Guess she didn't want to spend too much on herself." They snickered. My chest tightened. For a second, I wanted to shrink, to disappear into the sea of lace and tuxedos, but I stood straighter instead, forcing a smile. Because while they mocked the fabric on my back, they didn't realize the marble under their feet, the chandeliers above their heads, the very walls surrounding them. All of it was mine. 2 years earlier, I had invested in this property. The venue had been struggling, and I poured in nearly $200,000 to save it. Paperwork, renovations, countless hours of planning. Every detail came together because of me. I never told my daughter. I wanted her to feel like she had chosen the perfect place, without the weight of debt. And now, standing there while my son-in-law sneered at a dress I loved, I realized he had no idea whose generosity surrounded him. He thought I was small, forgettable. But soon he would learn that the most powerful person in the room wasn't the one in the tuxedo. It was the woman in the navy dress he had just mocked. That night, while music filled the air and guests danced under glittering chandeliers, I drifted quietly to the side. My son-in-law strutted about like the king of the evening, greeting relatives, shaking hands, soaking in praise for what he called his grand choice of venue. But I remembered the truth. 2 years ago, this place had been crumbling. The roof leaked, the floors sagged, and the owners were desperate to sell. When I saw the for sale sign, something stirred in me. My daughter had always dreamed of a beautiful wedding. I wanted her to have a place she could be proud of. So I signed the papers. $200,000, money I had saved through years of work, sacrifice, and careful planning. My friends called me crazy, but I didn't care. This wasn't just an investment in property. It was an investment in my family's future. I worked with contractors, picked out the marble floors, chose the chandeliers, even walked through late nights with blueprints in hand. I imagined my daughter walking down the aisle here, smiling, radiant, surrounded by beauty. And now here we were. The dream realized. Guests marveled at the high ceilings, the polished wood, the glowing lights. They congratulated my son-in-law for choosing so well. I almost laughed. He hadn't chosen anything. He hadn't even paid for the catering, let alone the walls around us. He thought my dress was cheap. But what price tag did he imagine hung from the sparkling crystals above his head? I caught his eye across the room, his smirk returning as he whispered something to a friend, no doubt another remark about me. I straightened my necklace, feeling my late husband's presence in its weight. It wasn't time yet. I wouldn't ruin my daughter's night with petty arguments. But I promised myself, before the evening ended, the truth would come out. Not in anger, not in shouting, but in the simple power of fact. Because sometimes dignity doesn't roar. Sometimes it waits patiently, letting arrogance dig its own hole before quietly lowering the receipt into the silence. And when that moment came, my son-in-law would understand that the woman in the navy dress didn't just belong at the wedding. She owned it. The night carried on with music and wine, laughter spilling across the hall. My daughter was glowing, dancing with friends, her veil trailing like a ribbon of light. She deserved every bit of joy that evening brought. But my son-in-law, he seemed to take the spotlight for himself. "Quite the venue, huh?" he boasted to a group of guests. "Took me weeks to get this place. Cost a fortune, but nothing's too much for family." They clapped him on the back, raising glasses. He grinned, soaking in their admiration. I stood by the buffet, listening, my hands folded calmly. Each word he spoke was a thread, weaving arrogance tighter around him. Later, during speeches, he took the microphone. "I want to thank everyone for being here," he said, chest puffed. "And of course, I want to thank myself for pulling off such an incredible venue. It wasn't easy, but I made it happen." Laughter. Applause. I glanced around. Faces beamed at him, believing his story. My daughter smiled faintly, though I noticed her eyes flicker. Maybe she knew deep down that the words weren't quite true. I felt the paper in my purse. The deed, the receipt of renovations, the proof of ownership. My fingers brushed the edges, steady and sure. The arrogance peaked when one of his friends nudged him, pointing at me. "What about your mother-in-law? Doesn't she deserve some thanks?" He smirked, microphone still in hand. "Oh, she's here in her budget-friendly best," he quipped. "But hey, it's the thought that counts." The crowd chuckled nervously, eyes darting to me. My cheeks burned, but I didn't lower my head. Not this time. I walked forward, calm as the music dimmed. "Since we're giving thanks," I said, my voice carrying clearly, "I'd like to share a truth." The room stilled. My son-in-law blinked, caught off guard. I reached into my purse, pulling out the crisp papers. "This venue, the one you're all enjoying tonight, wasn't booked by him. It wasn't arranged by him. It was bought. $200,000 paid in full. By me." Gasps rippled across the hall. Guests turned, whispering. My daughter covered her mouth in shock. My son-in-law's face drained of color, the microphone slipping slightly in his hand. And in that silence, I finally stood tall in my navy dress. No longer cheap, no longer overlooked, just the undeniable truth, shining brighter than any chandelier above us. For a long, heavy moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the speakers and the clink of a glass being set down too quickly. Then the whispers began. "She bought the venue? 200,000? Not him?" Heads turned, eyes darting between me and my son-in-law. His smug grin had vanished, replaced by a tight jaw and a pale face. He cleared his throat, fumbling for words. "She's exaggerating. Sure, maybe she helped, but—" I raised a hand, my voice steady. "No, not helped. Owned. Every chandelier, every polished tile, every wall you see was paid for by me. My name is on the deed. Without me, this night would not exist here." Gasps rolled through the crowd. Even the catering staff exchanged glances, some nodding subtly. They knew who signed their checks. My daughter stepped forward, her eyes wide, filled with a mix of shock and pride. "Mom, is that true? You never told me." I softened. "Because I didn't want to overshadow your happiness. This was your day. But when I am mocked in front of my own family, it's time the truth is heard." The guests murmured their agreement. An aunt patted my shoulder, whispering, "You deserve respect. Always." My son-in-law's friends backed away, their laughter gone. One muttered, "Man, you should have given credit." He stammered, I didn't mean..." But the silence that followed swallowed him whole. No excuse could erase what everyone had seen, his arrogance laid bare against my quiet strength. I looked around the hall, my voice carrying now with confidence. Respect doesn't come from expensive suits or flashy words. It comes from honesty, from gratitude. I don't need applause for what I've given, but I will not stand by while I am belittled in a room I built. Applause broke out, not roaring, but steady and sincere, the kind of clapping that meant people understood. My son-in-law lowered his head, unable to meet my gaze. For the rest of the night, he spoke little. His earlier bravado crumbled. My daughter slipped her arm through mine, whispering, "You've always been stronger than anyone realized." And as I looked at her, I knew this wasn't just about a dress or a remark. It was about reclaiming my place, not at the edge of the room, but at the very heart of it. When the music faded and the last of the guests began to leave, I stayed behind, watching the chandeliers dim one by one. My daughter squeezed my hand, her eyes still shining. "Mom, I can't believe you did all this. You gave me the wedding of my dreams." Her words warmed me, but beside her my son-in-law stood stiff, his pride fractured. He had barely spoken since my revelation. Finally, when my daughter drifted off to gather her things, he approached me quietly. His voice was low, stripped of arrogance. I shouldn't have said what I did. About the dress. About you. I thought it was funny. I looked at him steadily. Mocking someone you owe everything to isn't funny. It's cruel. And it's dangerous. For your marriage, for your family, for yourself. He swallowed hard, nodding. I know. I get it now. This whole night wouldn't have been possible without you, and I made you feel small in it. I'm sorry. The apology was awkward, but it was something. I didn't soften too quickly. Respect isn't an accessory you put on when it suits you. It's a choice you make every day. You chose to belittle me tonight. Next time, choose better. His shoulders sagged, and for once, he had no comeback. In the weeks that followed, the ripple of that evening lingered. Family members called, telling me how proud they were, how they had never realized the extent of my strength. My son-in-law, humbled, began treating me differently. No more smirks, no more sly comments. At gatherings, he pulled out my chair, offered me a drink, and most importantly, he listened. My daughter noticed too. She told me softly one afternoon, "He learned his lesson. He won't take you lightly again." I nodded. Because it was never really about the dress. It was about dignity. Owning that venue wasn't just a financial investment. It was a reminder to myself and to them that I had built something solid, something no careless remark could tear down. And as I stood once more in that grand hall, empty now but echoing with memories, I realized the true price of the night. $200,000 had secured marble floors and crystal lights, but the respect I reclaimed? That was priceless. In the end, it wasn't the flowers, the food, or even the music people remembered most. It was the moment the truth came out, when the woman in the cheap dress turned out to be the one who had given them the hall they stood in. My son-in-law thought a remark could shrink me, but words lose their sting when weighed against deeds, and no smirk can erase sacrifice written in stone and steel. Respect is not handed out like champagne at a wedding. It's earned and it's owed, and when it's denied, sometimes the only way to remind them is to let the truth speak for itself. So let me ask you, have you ever been mocked, only to reveal a strength they never imagined? Share your story in the comments, and stay tuned for more tales where dignity always takes center stage.